They say the wind speaks first in Ash Hollow, and on that afternoon, it hollered like it knew something awful was coming. Dust danced through the bones of the town, snagging on rusted nails and whispering through broken shutters. Boone Lammy rode in slow, hat dipped low against the grit. His boots, cracked from years in the saddle, hit the ground outside the Blackhorn Saloon with the heaviness of a man who didn't want to be where he was, but came anyway. Inside, cigar smoke clung to the ceiling like regret. Laughter spilled from slack jaws and bourbon-soaked throats. At the center of it all stood a woman, not dancing, not crying, just standing. Pale dress, threadbare and wilted, hair pinned too neatly for the room she was in. Her name, Boone would learn later, was Clara May Hollis, though at that moment, she was no one. A cousin's poker debt had carved her into a commodity, and now, under the flickering light of an oil lamp, she was being sold. $1 starting bid, the cousin barked, swinging a bottle. Come on now, she's clean enough. Good bones on her. She flinched, but only slightly. Eyes front, chin raised, a defiant little ember in a room full of smoke. Boone didn't care for spectacles, didn't care for people much at all. But something about her stillness, how she didn't tremble, didn't plead, stopped him cold. She looked like someone who had already died once and wasn't interested in doing it again. That was a look Boone knew. A ranch hand snorted. I got 50 cents and a mule tooth. $1, Boone said, voice like gravel stirred by rain. The room paused. Laughter stalled. All eyes turned to him. $1, he repeated, stepping forward. That's all I got. Clara looked at him then, real slow. Her eyes weren't begging. They were bracing. She opened her mouth just enough to say, voice barely above a prayer, please, just make it quick. He took off his hat, held it to his chest. I'm not here to hurt you. A scoff came from the crowd. What kind of man pays not to touch? Boone ignored it, laid the coin on the table between them like it weighed 100 pounds. You can ride with me if you want. Ain't no strings on it. Just, I got a place where the sky don't press so hard. No one cheered. No one clapped. Clara stepped forward and took the coin from the table, tucked it in her palm like a stone, and walked past her cousin without a backward glance. Boone turned and led her outside, neither one speaking as they mounted and rode into the wind. Behind them, the saloon doors creaked like they'd witnessed something unnatural. And maybe they had, because kindness, in a town like Ash Hollow, was the last thing anyone expected to see sold for $1. The wind at Boone's ranch spoke softer than the one in Ash Hollow, less like judgment, more like memory. Clara slept the first night on a cot in the corner of the parlor, boots neatly placed beside it, as if unsure whether she was visitor or burden. Boone didn't ask. He fed the horses, fixed the fence, and left warm bread by the hearth each morning. She ate in silence, never thanking him, never asking why. By the third day, she was sweeping dust from the floor, unbidden. By the seventh, she'd stitched a curtain for the cracked window, pale blue with a frayed hem. She didn't smile, but her shoulders began to rest lower. Boone noticed but said nothing. He moved through his days like a ghost with calloused hands, present, but unreachable. In town, mouths flapped like barn doors in a storm. At the general store, Miss Greta's voice sliced through the room. She'll take his name and ruin it. Men like Boone should know better than to rescue women with price tags. The clerk just nodded, too afraid or too cruel to disagree. Clara heard every word. The gossip clung to her like the ash of a long-dead fire. She returned to the ranch with her chin up, but her eyes betrayed her, shattered glass behind frost. That night, she scrubbed herself raw by the creek, the cold water biting at her skin. Boone found her there, dress soaked and hands shaking. I had to feel clean, she whispered. He offered no comfort, only held out a bar of lavender soap worn down to a sliver. Belonged to my wife. Clara took it with both hands like it was sacred, like it hurt to touch. The days grew longer. Boone taught her how to saddle a horse, how to brace a fence post against wind and cattle. She taught him how to eat with company again. They spoke little, but what was said carried weight. Clara sang once when she thought he wasn't listening, an old hymn, cracked and lovely. He didn't mention it, but he fed her favorite beans that night, slow-cooked with molasses. Then Jed Callahan rode in. He stank of whiskey and sweat, grinning like a wolf too long without meat. Boone was repairing the stable door. Clara was shelling peas in the sun. "Thought I'd find you here," Jed slurred, dismounting. "Figure I'll take back what's mine. You can keep your damn dollar." Boone stood, eyes hard. "She wasn't yours then. She sure as hell ain't now." Jed stepped toward Clara, hand outstretched. "You really want to rot with this has-been?" Clara didn't move. Her voice was steady. "I'd rather rot than ride with you." Jed reached for her wrist. Boone was on him in a blink. Not with a gun, but with a fist like thunder. Jed hit the ground with a grunt, blood on his lip, boots scrambling. Boone didn't look away as he spoke. "You come back, hey? It won't be fists next time." Jed spat, eyes wild, then rode off without another word. Clara stood beside Boone, chest heaving. He turned to her, breath short, hands still clenched. "I ain't a good man," he said, "but I'll never let harm come to you again." And for the first time, she believed him. Morning came soft and gold across the ridges, laying hush over the ranch like a prayer finally answered. Clara moved through the kitchen barefoot now, her hair loose, humming low as she stirred coffee with hands that no longer shook. Boone sat on the porch most evenings, whittling useless shapes into wood, pretending not to wait for her to sit beside him. But she always did. They didn't speak of love, didn't name the thing that had taken root between them. It was enough just to be near, to carry silence like something shared, not suffered. In town, folks had gone from whispering to watching. The stays didn't sting like they used to, but they still lingered like smoke. Clara held her head high when they walked through the general store. Boone nodded to no one in particular, just enough to say he wasn't hiding. Miss Greta pursed her lips but said nothing now. Words held no power against the truth that Clara had not only stayed, but belonged. One afternoon, Boone handed her a tin of paint and said, "Pick a color for the house." She chose sage green, soft like spring. By the week's end, she was planting roots in the earth out front, wildflowers, mostly. Hardy things that bloomed best after drought. But quiet days don't keep storms away. Jed returned just before dusk, bringing 2 riders with him and the stench of something meaner than drink. They rode hard up the hill, dust kicking like thunder behind them. Boone stepped off the porch before Clara even reached the door. He had no rifle this time, just a hammer still in his grip from fixing the porch rail. Jed dismounted slow, too casual. "You made a fool of me once. I aim to collect my pride." Boone didn't blink. "You're a fool all on your own." One of the riders, a wiry man with a scarred lip, nudged his horse forward. "Town's been talking, Lammy. You keeping a whore like she's a wife. Don't sit right with some folks." Clara stepped outside then, bare shoulders catching the light like armor. She moved to stand beside Boone, not behind him. Her hand found his without hesitation. "You got something to say about me," she said, voice clear. "Say it to my face." Boone didn't move. "This is our land. We ain't hiding. You want to start something here. Make sure your people know they'll be burying you before supper." The men exchanged glances. Jed sneered, but didn't dismount. "Ain't worth the bullet," he muttered, then turned his horse. The others followed, vanishing into dusk. Clara's breath shook as she watched them go, but her hand in Boone's stayed steady. Later, they sat on the porch beneath a sky bruised with stars. Boone looked over at her, his voice soft. "That dollar I paid for you, it was never meant to buy anything." She smiled, quiet and sure. "But it gave me something I thought I'd lost." "What's that?" "Dignity, and a place where I ain't afraid." Boone didn't answer, just leaned back and let the wind carry their silence out across the land, where nothing ever really disappeared, only softened with time.